Hi again then guys, and welcome to the 88th episode of B-Road Ballers, and this particular episode is one which, first of all, if you clicked on it at all, well done, because it's not exactly the most enticing of vehicles. It's a car which we have kind of talked about on the channel before, but not in this specific form. We've talked about the Prius touring car in the Dark series, but even in racing form as a touring car, it's not exactly a car which is on the top of many people's list of cars to buy, or even if they have bought it, on the cars to use list. It's a vehicle which is very much niched. It's also got kind of an irony factor to it, having a race car version of a Prius, and there are of course race car versions of the Prius in real life as well. There's a Wed Sport, I believe it is, GT300 spec machine. Now on the game, there are actually a number of Priuses to choose from. You've got the original generation, which interestingly is not a hatchback, it's just a conventional sedan. Then you've got this version, which is kind of the Prius that most people think of. It's where it got that signature Prius shape. Then you've got the premium Prius, which is basically just a slight facelift, but it keeps the same silhouette. And then of course you've got the newer Prius again, but that one isn't featured on the game. Now, the question is, why would you want to buy a Prius? And perhaps more importantly than that, regardless of whether or not you want to, should you? Because at the end of the day, many people, understandably, are not interested in buying the Prius or using it on a racing game. Why would you? There are certainly far more desirable cars out there, and at the end of the day, it's not designed for performance. It's designed to be efficient and environmentally friendly. The engine is a 1.5 litre naturally aspirated unit, combined of course with electric motors to give it the best possible efficiency. On the game, you can upgrade that engine. You can give it 144 horsepower, 132 foot-pounds of torque. Those aren't bad numbers, but they're not exactly amazing. The torque is kind of more impressive given how close to the power it is, and the fact that the car doesn't actually weigh that much is pretty good. The entire weight of the vehicle with the full weight loss package is only 1,055 kilos. That's pretty decent, but the best thing of all about the Prius is actually the PPU level, because even in that fully tuned form, which you can see here driving around midfield, the PP level is only 353. That is remarkably low. Now, you have to actually think about that for a second. 353 pp is virtually nothing. If you think of the kind of cars that you would get at that level, they're cars with far, far less than 144 horsepower typically. Now they are also typically lighter than a Prius would be, say 500 or 600 kilos, stuff like the Subaru 360, the Fiat 500, that kind of thing. And so that raises the question, why am I reviewing the car, and is it kind of a hidden gem? Well, the reason why I'm reviewing the Prius is because surprisingly this is one of those vehicles which is kind of like the car equivalent of the movie Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. It's a movie that's so bad that it becomes good again, and it's so ironically bad that people actually are fans of it. And the Prius is kind of similar to that. No, it's not a bad car. People confuse the terms bad and slow. Those words are not synonymous. A truck isn't that fast, but that doesn't make it bad. A Prius, though, gets treated as though it's a bad car more because of the social stigma attached to it, the kind of people that buy Priuses. That is understandable, but that's no fault of the car. The car itself does its job very well. Now, the question is, can it surpass that to be that kind of Attack of the Killer Tomatoes of the car world? Can it become so bad or so underappreciated and so undervalued and so underestimated that it actually can become a weapon, or literally a sleeper car? And to some degree, I would say yes. Now, is it a sleeper car on the level of something like a Lexus GS300 or a Daihatsu Storia Cross 4? No, of course not. I would never claim that it is, but in its own way, it definitely is, as far as I'm concerned, a sleeper car, because all of that power, torque, low weight and performance, and don't discount its performance for a second, bear with me here, having all of that at just 350 pp or close enough is actually a remarkable advantage to have. Because compare this car to its rivals. I already mentioned that you're looking around the 350 pp level at stuff like the Subaru 360, a couple of K cars maybe, and some others as well, the Fiat 500, that kind of thing. Now in those vehicles, you struggle to pass say 80 or 90 miles per hour. In the Prius, you don't. As you can see here around midfield, you can quite easily get the car up around or even over 100 miles per hour. And the acceleration, being direct drive, actually isn't bad either. It's fairly smooth, fairly consistent, and the acceleration is kind of relentless in its own little underpowered way. So actually, at its PP level, which is ultra low, this is ironically one of the quickest cars you can get down at that PP level. So although it's not a car which you choose for the fun factor, certainly not, it does definitely have its use. And unlike some of the other hybrids like the Toyota Aqua, the Nissan Leaf for instance, that kind of thing, this is actually cheaper than those hybrids and EV vehicles. This is cheaper than the Mitsubishi i-MiEV, it's cheaper than the Leaf, and not only is it cheaper than those cars, but more often than not, it's also faster. Bear in mind, the Nissan Leaf cannot go beyond 75 miles per hour, neither can the Mitsubishi i-MiEV. This car can go well beyond that, and in a straight line, despite having considerably less power than the Toyota Aqua, it feels quicker. So overall, for 25 grand or just under 26, it's not a car which I would recommend for fun, or even for everyone. But if, like myself, sometimes you enjoy a bit of ultra slow racing, say in ultra low PP levels, this is one of those cars which you should keep in mind. It has its uses, and if you keep it in that use, in that relatively narrow bracket of usability, it can serve you well. Surprisingly well, in fact. So overall, that's it for this particular review, and don't discount the Prius. We will also be covering a couple of other Priuses as well down the line in the future, but for now, as always, thanks for watching.